Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer, and this is The Road with the Record, where I work to achieve mastery of 10 games in a hunt for the best score of the Decathlon. Like what you see, remember to hit that like button. You want to see more? Hit subscribe. Let the games begin. This is F1 2019, and it's episode number 9 here in career mode with our Road to Glory series for Williams Racing, which of course, unlike in years past, this is the farthest off a team's been in quite a few seasons. Remember when Manor Marussia, back when it was just Manor, they were definitely well off pace, but they at least were joined in the back. That was Alfa Romeo back when they were Sauber, I believe, that was down there with them, if I am correct in my memory of that. But at the moment, we have no upgrades scheduled at all. We did have one upgrade done having to do with drag this week. And in the aero department, we're now looking at 3 majors all open to us. Nothing else. So I don't have the points for that. And meanwhile, I've been starting to prepare myself for the chassis department, trying to get those upgrades on the go. I did spend 600 on quality control level 2. I would like to get quality control level 3 before I start actually investing in the upgrades, and that is 700. We've got 567, meaning, well, nothing we could do in either aero or chassis. The one way we could go is the risky move in powertrain to get the crankshaft, to get a little more power in there without actually dealing with any quality control. It's costly, but it's only 500. Yeah, it'd take a big risk that it's going to fail, but at least it would give us a little more boost. At some point, I want to spend 500 on that without going into quality control or cost effectiveness there in the powertrain, just to get those first couple minor upgrades out of the way eventually. Comparing powertrains, though, Mercedes has done one upgrade. You can see Racing Point still on the initial. Ferrari's done an upgrade to level where we're at, but they haven't gone beyond. So we still have a good engine right now. We don't want to drift too far down in that department before doing something, but we will, get into it at some point. So anyway, we're still way behind in the downforce, and we are still way behind in the chassis. So we're going to continue to focus primarily on those. I haven't even done that basic durability upgrade and the general maintenance that improves everything by a little bit. That's 10%. I mean, that's significant, and it's only 500 points. So at some point, I would like to get that in as well. So we have 2 engine upgrades, 1 reliability upgrade that I need to squeeze into my program at some point. Now, in terms of the department efficiencies, well, I think we're good on aero. I just want 1 more on chassis, and then we can pretty much focus on parts for a while anyway into next season. So I think I've kind of isolated chassis at the moment, as I've done 2 recent upgrades there. So I think I will at least spend the next little bit from this race on that first upgrade and getting the chassis underway. Quality control, and then the first, let's see, what upgrade would this be? Weight or weight? So either one is going to be a weight issue, overall weight reduction or redistribution, either one helping the car out and making it a bit lighter, which certainly is a good thing, as, well, the car's not in too good a shape out there. We still struggle through the corners. Now, let's go ahead and get to our one-shot qualifying. The good news is here at Paul Ricard, where we are for this race, the French Grand Prix, practice was good. I got purple on every single practice program, though I never ran the fuel program. You don't have to run every program to get the max points. but every other program was run, and we got purple on all of them. I only spun out twice in practice on the same corner, so that's something I've got to watch out for in this race. I know what I did both times to make that happen. But outside of the possibility of doing that in the race, and it's like I think it's turns 3, 4, 5 sequence.
Grand Prix weekend, another exciting qualifying session ahead of us.
And it's between 4 or 5. So coming out of 4, where you're making a hard left, and then a quick switch back into the right.
There isn't much margin for error in qualifying, and you have to bear in mind that the track conditions may have changed since practice, particularly as we've had a few support races in the meantime. If the brake bias settings, for example, don't take this into account, it's extremely easy to lock up a front wheel and cause a flat spot. Just like that, your lap's ruined, and you've wasted a set of tyres to boot.
There's a very quick acceleration zone in between as you're readjusting the wheel from a hard left into a hard right and back on the gas at the same time. So as you're accelerating and wrenching the wheel from left to right, twice I've turned it around there. So got to be careful with that one, both in qualifying and in the race. But otherwise, got a good handle of the car. Like I said, I was able to get purple up and down and have competitive lap times. And it's really tight, the field, from the midfield onto the back. We're talking about tenths of a second between the best of the rest to last place are all less than a second apart. So it's very, very compact for those 14 cars or so, and even I think the Red Bulls weren't far off in the distance on time from there. So we are very much looking at a very tight race. I could be anywhere in this qualifying. It looks like I could be as high as best of the rest. I doubt that I'll be that high. I think it was more along the lines of I could get just outside of the top 10 unless I run a perfect lap. And if I make the tiniest mistake, I could be starting from my normal last place. But let's go ahead and go to track for one shot qualifying. One lap to rule them all. One lap to bind them. You can tell here from this front straight that I have just a bit of... That's one of my weakest corners on the whole grid. Everybody else can push through turn 2. Williams doesn't quite have... Here's the sequence I'm talking about. It's right between here and there. You can tell I'm getting that little bit extra, just a light grind with the ground, and it's making for a rough ride, but it's not affecting the times. I actually raised up the ride height a little bit to compensate, and it's not as bad as it was, but it's giving me that maximum downforce that's helping with the car, but it's just making things slightly bumpy out there. So currently in P20, that mistake I made way back really on turn 1-2 sequence, or that turn 2. Everybody else is flat out through there, and I'm just not able to match that. And sometimes I get it to where it's just a little lift. Oh, that is the worst. That's the worst I've done on that corner all weekend. Well, besides the very first lap I ran. That's not going to be a good time. We're going to start from the back.
Disappointing, but we just need to push hard in the race and we can
two definite minor mistakes, and I think two other corners where I didn't have the cleanest run through.
Those who will be fronting the grid: Hamilton, Leclerc, and Max Verstappen. With
Bottas, Vettel, and Gasly behind that.
For the big race tomorrow.
And you see
join us then for what will no doubt be a fantastic race.
Half a second separating the top 6. And then we go from, we'll round that to 1.4 for Perez. And 2.4 to Russell. Albon screwed up a little bit, 2.6. I definitely screwed up. I lost more than a second over the course of that lap. And that puts me off the pace. Consistently, though, I've been there in practice, there's always that little bit of an adjustment period in terms of hyper-focus. Hyper-focus without commentary versus trying to give commentary. The focus always drops ever so slightly. And you can't afford that in a Formula One car where you need that hyper-focus. So I always set myself back a little bit, and that seems to be why what I do consistently through practice, I don't quite match once I get out here and start adding the commentary to it. So commentator's curse is upon me, and I'm going to start from 20th and see my teammate, though, where he is and what that gap. I mean, it's 1 second from 7th to 18th. 1.2 if you add in Albon. So I think I could outdo him. And of course, in real life, big news here of the summer break is that Alexander Albon will replace Pierre Gasly for the remainder of the season, and Gasly has been demoted back down to Toro Rosso for the remainder of this season. And there's going to be a direct comparison between Kvyat, who most people figured would be the one promoted when the time came, and it actually makes perfect sense to me why it's Albon and not Kvyat. It's a test. It's a test between the three drivers for who's going to have the seat next year, because they don't have any other viable alternatives for next season. They always promote from within. They have a B team. They're the only ones who officially have a B team, and it's weird because Formula One keeps talking about how B teams are not allowed, but they most clearly have a B team. And Toro Rosso has always functioned as that B team to Red Bull, and that never seems to be in that conversation these days. They talk about whether Williams is going to be a B team to Mercedes if they put Ocon alongside Russell and have two Mercedes drivers driving for Williams, and how Williams doesn't want to be a B team, refuse to be a B team, and have too much pride to be a B team. And then, of course, so many teams debating Racing Point's relationship, as well as, in particular, Haas's relationship to Ferrari as a B team. Anyway, with that, Toro Rosso and Red Bull, they've always had a promote from within. They've never hired drivers from without.
Chin up. It's not the end of the world.
Once they came in as principal sponsor. And with that, right, it makes sense that they're still looking from within, but they're very thin on drivers right now. So they're not looking outside of those three. They've already seen Kvyat in the Red Bull. Now they've seen Gasly in the Red Bull. But they haven't seen Albon there. They haven't seen how Albon does in the Red Bull. They haven't seen how he does alongside Max Verstappen as his wingman. They have seen all three of those drivers in the Toro Rosso, and they know how they run. So what they can do now by promoting Albon and not Kvyat is you're now getting a direct comparison to Verstappen for all three drivers, albeit Kvyat's data is a little bit older on that. But he's certainly driven alongside him, and they have that. They also have how Kvyat is now in the Toro Rosso compared to how he was before and after his promotion-demotion the previous time. So Kvyat, they can get a pretty good hard line of where he's developed. And they can compare his old times with Max, how much Max improved from then till now, and see roughly where he would be if you take a direct correlation from Kvyat's old numbers before and after versus his numbers from this year. Take all that data and you could have a expected outcome with Kvyat. You already pretty much know where he is. Now you know the promotion demotion thing with Kvyat, what that did to his head, and how that messed him up. So for Kvyat, he's not an unknown quantity. He's been there. He's been tested. And he's okay. He really is okay. He was nowhere near as bad as Gasly has been. Now, Gasly, he's been in Toro Rosso. You have his numbers from there. Then, compared to Hartley last season, and then you have him this year against Verstappen. And how awful he has been. Now you can take a very, very clear comparison of Gasly versus Kvyat. Because Kvyat's been through the Toro Rosso, promoted to Red Bull, demoted to Toro Rosso scenario. Now you can see directly how those two will compare. And now in the same car, directly how they compare head to head. Couldn't be clearer which one by the end of the season. Right? Give him a few races to adjust, Gasly. But from that point on, the remainder of the season, head to head, direct comparison, bam. You can tell who's better. Now, Albon was pretty similar to Kvyat, though I think Kvyat might have had the slightest edge over Albon. Albon, though, level-headed. But unlike the other two drivers, who have a very similar path now of down, up, down, seeing both cars, both driving alongside Max, or not alongside Max. I suppose Gasly was alongside Ricciardo. Not Gasly, Kvyat was alongside Ricciardo, and he was demoted in favor of Max. I'm bad on that part, but still, they have clear comparisons of Ricciardo and Max's growth over that time. So anyway, data still can reveal plenty. Albon doesn't have that. He's just got his Toro Rosso ride, and he's got how he's just about there with Kvyat. Now here's the thing with Kvyat. Kvyat's had his chance, and he's had years of experience. How much more is Kvyat going to improve? You promote him to Red Bull. Is he going to get better? Would he get better? Is he better than Albon? Maybe by a few percentage points. Maybe. Small margin. But what about potential? You gotta figure Kvyat's already about there. I mean, he's already about as good as he'll get. And that now leaves Albon. Has he reached his potential? He's never been talked about frequently as a high potential kind of guy. But he has been talked about a level-headed, likable, quality driver. So, will a Bottas-type driver serve Max Verstappen better than Gasly? Well, couldn't be any worse than Gasly. Gasly's been horrendously bad. And if he is, well, now you have a direct comparison, right? They've each been Toro Rosso, they've each had a chance in Red Bull, and then at the end of the season, with a near half season to get a look at Albon, then you can make a decision between those three drivers of who is going to do best alongside Max, who's going to give them the most points, who's going to support Max the best. It doesn't look like it's Gasly. Kvyat, we already know what we're getting. And maybe, just maybe, if Ricciardo was there, maybe Red Bull would be fighting for a championship right now with Mercedes. And Ferrari would be a distant third. But that what if isn't there and isn't a possibility anymore. This is what they have to work with, and they're doing that. And I think it was a wise decision. But we are way past time to get into this race. Let's go. And by the way, talking now, much easier. Focusing now on one thing, much easier. Let's head into the race where I could focus a little more on the race, talk a little less, and let's get to the action.
Circuit Paul Ricard, current home of the French Grand Prix, an event dating all the way back to 1906. It's been held at many venues over the years, with famous moments from Dijon and Manicourt the feature of many a highlights reel. And let's hope we see more of those in the race today. The Circuit Paul Ricard then, a 3.6 mile track, 25 miles east of Marseille. 15 corners here, 6 to the left and 9 to the right, with the main overtaking chance expected going into turn 8. Top speeds today should be around 205 miles per hour. Anthony Davidson is alongside me as usual for the race today. Let's start with the new Alfa Romeo driver. What do you make of their performance so far this season?
Well, the atmosphere within that team seems very positive at the moment. Everyone seems like they're in great spirits and having a lot of fun doing what they do, and that's definitely contributed to the performances we've seen.
With the race minutes away from starting, here's what today's grid rundown looks like. An immense lap from Lewis Hamilton yesterday puts him on pole position, and it's Charles Leclerc in P2. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Verstappen, Bottas, Sebastian Vettel, and Gasly, Perez, Norris, Weber, and Kimi Raikkonen, Grosjean, Ricciardo, Kevin Magnussen, and Stroll, Hulkenberg, Sainz, Devon Butler, and George Russell, Albon, and the Professor. And with preparations almost complete, let's head down to the track.
No penalties anywhere on the grid today. A little surprising at the point we're at in the season. You'd expect a
Keep your eyes
couple
open on the run to
drivers.
turn 1 and keep it clean. We want to come out in one piece. Good luck.
Almost wish I had taken the bait on that, qualifying last as it was, and putting in a new engine, which would have guaranteed starting last, but still. Could have had a new engine, fresh parts. Otherwise, I'm going to end up changing out a few parts between this race and the next. This week, no new parts on the car. The only difference was I did change my practice gearbox out, finally. That's been all. We're going to go ahead and head into the race. Like I said, I've got a good handle on the car, driving much more consistently on this track than many, many others. You have a lot more room for minor mistakes here. And wide sweeping corners where you could play around with it a little bit, and sometimes you can find a better line, really, than what's offered. I've got good competitive times. I very well could be in this race. But we'll see if that actually happens. I got to keep it clean, of course. I've got to watch out for that turn 4-5 quick switchback. And beyond that, I should be able to cruise through. Really good on tire wear. Really good on tire wear here. Fuel load not quite as good, but as I'm starting from the back, I will make the obvious swap. And yeah, see, they're already seeing the tire wear difference. I can go 7 laps. Let's edit the strategy, though, and we'll switch here. There you go. Okay, so 6 laps on the softs and the mediums, and then we're going to go to the softs for longer. I like that. It's a bold strategy. We'll see what we can do with it. From the looks of this, though, we are very much seeing that a little extra fuel might help things out a bit. Gives a chance to burn a little more off. And I think we're ready to roll. Enough commentary already. Let's get to the race. So we're at Paul Ricard, Le Castalet, for the French Grand Prix. We're going to put up 5 red lights. Let's go racing. Not quite enough revs starting out, so I bogged down a little bit. That was not wheel spin at all. That was definitely getting bogged down. Good clean start to the race for everyone. Unlike some tracks, turn 1 is definitely not as bad. Did Grosjean take out Hulkenberg? No, he did not. He likes to take him out there. Got her Magnussen. A little wide through there. Okay though. Well, not so okay. They kind of pulled away from me, didn't they? It's okay, we'll get it back at the end of the straight as things will bunch up inevitably. Good quick exit from there, focusing more on the straight line speed after. Should get me back up there here in the next little bit. Oof, with that heavy fuel load, I'm bumping and grinding a lot more. I'm very much feeling the weight of the car at the moment. Whoa! Whoa! That was a difficult braking zone there.
Start was okay. Now stay alert for threats around you.
I always brake a little late through there, but I've never had it shoot like that. There was just, yeah, that first lap heavy fuel load plus the low ride height to begin with is, when we hit these straights like this, I'm bobbing and weaving quite bad. I mean, you could probably hear my force feedback coming through on the microphone. There's that turn 2 that drives me nuts. Now, not out of contact, very much still within reach, and I'm on a different tire than everybody else. I've got to get myself back into a competitive position by getting up there. So I've got some ground to make up, and I need to turn down my ERS here as we're on lap 2, and I've probably burned through quite a bit of it already. Let's set ourselves up for that. Turn it down here at the end of the straight anyway. Got a medium for now, and then we'll get through one more straight and turn it down, or turn it off. Might be the way to go. Turn it off for the remainder of the lap. Yeah, see, I'm not even hitting 8th gear because of the the weight. It's taking longer to accelerate. I'm hovering right at the edge. Here's where I went off last time. Better this time, had to brake sooner, but see, I'm still struggling through that corner right now. That corner and this corner are affected pretty heavily by the fuel load right now, so I'm having to make a bigger adjustment for them than other corners on track. Use a little bit of DRS here, but we'll turn it back down.
DRS is now available.
There we go. That's something I've been wanting to try out ever since. Just not quite get on the gas as hard on the exit. Same here. Make for a quicker transition, use up less fuel.
The energy store is getting warm, reducing our overall capacity. The more charge you hold, the faster that capacity will drop.
I'm definitely on the slower tire, but I'm 6 seconds down, and that's not where I want to be. If I can at least stabilize that time.
On the ICE, be aware that we will start to see a loss of power. The pit window. You'll be on the softs. A new strategy is available on the MFD.
change strategy. There's nothing wrong with the car. Bumpiness is getting a little bit better. So one thing of note here for this race, right here, you can see there is pit road. That is the entrance to pit road. That is different. And if you watch the race in real life, they had changed it in real life as well. It used to be right here, right by the front straight.
7.5 seconds.
They changed it last minute in the off season. 7.5 seconds down to Russell, who's ahead of Albon. Ooh, I forgot to change the DRS. Turn it down.
Power from the engine is going to be down slightly and showing some minor wear.
The shaking's bad enough that my mouse just fell off my desk. So fuel load's holding steady. That's a good thing. Tires are still good. So we'll see if I can get anything. Anyway, the last minute change to the pit road caused Cody's to not be able to make that upgrade themselves. Ooh, there's Hamilton coming out right in front of me. Luckily, he had enough pace on the exit. I was worried I was going to be outside him, battling him. Speaking of battling, Sebastian Vettel on my rear. With an issue. Here goes Vettel.
Yellow flag.
Oh, Russell's out of the race.
Be aware, there's an incident in the next part of the track. No overtaking through the yellow flags. Green flag.
I didn't see him, but we're past him. It's Max Verstappen behind me now.
Box now, please. Box this lap.
Okay, here we go. Alright, good entry. I only practiced that once. Anyway, Cody's updated the game late. So the game started with the pit road still in the position it was in last year. but an update has moved it, and I only practiced it once, so that was actually only the second time that I made that move.
Go, go, go.
There you go, quick exit.
Pit strategy complete. See these tyres through to the end now.
Okay, well, now I'm on the faster tire, and I did my race program and qualifying program on this tire, so I know what it can do better than the mediums.
George is out of the race.
Okay, so P19, it's now Butler. Devin Butler ahead of me. He's on the mediums. But it looks like I still have a sizable gap ahead of me. So it's gonna take some time. See how much easier the line is, how much better my line is already, as I'm able to get just a little bit more grip with these tires than the mediums. A little off in the braking zone there. Cost me a little bit on the straight. Maybe a little too long in the braking that time, but I saw a car ahead of me. Did you see that? We're catching up. Caught another glimpse of Alvin there. It's now Alvin again, so Butler's gotten back around.
To fit the mediums. Car ahead, now running medium tyres. Our gap to the car in front is 5.7 seconds.
So I'm closing it back down. We're down to 5.7. It was definitely more than that before. And I saw it upwards of 7. Ah, late again there though. Not a good exit. That's again going to cost me time heading into this straight. But despite that, that lap was still 1 second faster. A little too tight to the apex there. Threw off my entire line, so it threw off the exit there. But I had to really stay on it, otherwise I would have lost a ton of time here on the straight. So pushed a little bit too hard. Minor mistakes are taking away a bit of what I'm gaining. So I need to kind of take it easy here. Back off just a little bit. This lap 4/10 slower than the last.
Okay, we need some energy harvesting. Reduce ERS deployment.
better. Much better than the last couple laps. And even though I was down on my time through the first 2 sectors, you can see overall the lap was half a second faster. So that's how much time I kept losing those last 2 laps through that corner. ERS is very low and I don't have spare fuel. But I see more than one car up there, so I'm still gaining on these guys. Half a second up again. I just turned off the ERS for the rest of the lap here to try to save some up. Getting closer, but I'm not there yet. Got a good run that time. I should be closing the gap down a little bit more here. Starting to see him more and more frequently. But if you take away those 3 seconds that I lost the first time through these last 2 double chicanes, I don't know what turn number that is, but what a difference that would have made, because that was 3 seconds. I'm 3.7 down now, but it's lap 12. So I would have been in DRS zone that time, in range. Okay, rich mix for the first time here. Last 2 laps, so might as well go for it. on, one lap to go.
Final lap of the race.
Here we go. Come on, come on. Get up there. Get me in contact. I think I might have made a mistake in there. Vettel has won the race, so he got ahead of Hamilton there. And I find a way to be competitive while not being competitive in this race, where my times were right about there every lap. But the Williams that I'm in is the slowest car on the grid, and there it was, just off the back. So, 19th, at least I beat my teammate for a change. That's because he didn't finish the race. He would have been just ahead of me otherwise, just a matter of seconds. And ultimately, the 3 seconds that I lost on a single corner on the first lap of the race was ultimately the difference from competing with those guys and being just off the back.
Parts of the race meant they were able to capitalize on the mistakes of other drivers, giving them the opportunity to make their way to the top spot with ease.
But in terms of time loss, there was only a couple seconds here or there, anywhere else in the entire race from minor mistakes. Usually it was just a tenth or two here and there. Otherwise, good, clean, competitive race in the slowest car. And this road to glory is definitely not easy. Unlike last year, where Williams was just off the pace, I was immediately able to contest, in the bottom half. This season, we're just not quite there. Just barely. Vettel, Leclerc, Bottas, Hamilton all the way down to 4th. He had a problem.
Anthony Davidson, who do you pick?
I have to say Sebastian Vettel certainly caught my eye during today's race. Incredible driving.
Let's move on to the constructors. Our championship leaders retain their position, but their lead is shrinking. I'm equal parts exhausted and elated with this weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for the next one.
So you can see I was 0.3 faster than Russell on my best lap. And that best lap was just faster than Butler, Stroll, Sainz, and Ricciardo. Wow, Ricciardo in 17th. Within a tenth of all of those guys. Within a tenth, Magnussen, Hulkenberg, Weber, the whole group, 7th on down. Super tight. And they were only 8 seconds down on Verstappen at the end of the race. So pretty close contest. You can see Perez and Weber a little bit clear of the rest, and then we're looking at 7 seconds from Norris to Albon at the end of the race, and I was less than 3 seconds behind Albon at the end of the race, where I had pretty much made up all that I lost. So if we theoretically took that 3-second away, if we treated that as it was a penalty, my mistake there on the first lap, those 3 seconds, I would have been right there in the mix, but still only ahead of Albon. It wouldn't have made a big difference. And that's assuming that I could actually pass him at some point. As fast as I was coming there in the end, I only picked up 3 seconds on these guys being on the soft compound compared to them being on the mediums. So it's not like I had a ton of speed. And you've also got to take into consideration that my best lap was on the back half of the race, where the car was lighter compared to everybody else. So even though I gained, they got their best laps possibly in the first half of the race. Or if they did get it in the second half, they got it on the medium compound instead of the soft. So really, I'm right where I should have been. I wasn't super fast compared to these guys. And I was consistent through that race. But Williams is Williams is Williams is Williams is slow. Quick glance at the standings. Hamilton's still on top after slipping to fourth. Remember, we were behind him there for a little bit, and they mentioned he had a problem. So Hamilton loses this race, I don't think based on pace. I think he had a problem with an engine component or gearbox, probably engine component, as everybody should have been on a new gearbox this week. Vettel moves ahead of Verstappen in the standings, 5 points behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. Bottas in P5, Gasly in P6, Perez best of the rest and comfortably. Mercedes 4 points clear of Ferrari in the constructors. Red Bull a bit further behind, 79 down. Racing Point 4 points clear of Alfa Romeo for best of the rest. Renault not far behind, and then McLaren and Haas duking it out for 7th. And it's us and Toro Rosso still unable to get into the scoring this season. That's going to do it for this episode. I'm Decathlon Gamer, and remember, I'm aiming for the best of the best. So if you're ready to join me on my journey, hit subscribe and tune in next time on my Road to the Record.